what I've realized is that this is far more interesting and intricate. And I would say plausible than I'd given it credit for before.
That's a quick excerpt from Alex O'Connor's most recent conversation with Bear Grylls. The full episode of that came out 2 weeks ago, and then he posted kind of a short, which he titled, "I've Realized Christianity is More Plausible Than I Thought," on his More Alex O'Connor channel. So I'm not taking this out of context. You can go and watch the full episode. This part comes right after him kind of talking about how he matured and grew up from the new atheist movement, and through his podcast, he has realized that Christianity is more plausible than he thought. And I want to talk about this today, and I want to set the stage a little bit. And I don't think I'm the only one, have noticed, especially it seems like over the course of the last year, a major tone shift or change from Alex, where there is this bridge building with Christians, which I have no problem with. I think that I share a lot of things with Alex in this respect. I too find Jesus as a historical figure fascinating. I too love truly the story of Jesus. If you just look at it as a narration, if you look at it as myth, because we can't know how much of those details are true, plus we can see where authors took liberty to tie things back to the Old Testament, etc. It is a really, really cool story. From John the Baptist preparing the way, all the way to Jesus in the garden questioning his father if there's any other way. The stuff that happens at the Last Supper, the betrayal, like this is an incredible story. No doubt about it. And I too think that something in that region at that time with a man that probably had this or a similar name happened, and that it was unique, and that this man was probably ahead of his time. But in no way does that make me think that the actual claims of Christianity are plausible or more plausible, whatever that means. And in no way does it make me want Christianity to be true. And that's actually where the story with Alex starts for me. At the beginning of the year, I saw this clip.
My listeners know that I'm somebody who would love to be a Christian. I'd love for it to be true.
And it actually made me reach out to him because I wanted to investigate this. Alex is so freaking smart. He is so articulate that I don't think that this is a misspeak. And in fact, I know it's not. I've heard him say as much many other times. And there was one clip in particular I was looking for, and I just cannot find, where someone asked him, what religion would you like to be true? Not to be confused with more recently when Ruslan asked him, what denomination would you pick? What religion would you like to be true? He can say none. He could say anything. He says Christianity. Now he caveats it, and again, take this with a grain of salt because I cannot find it and it's been a while. He caveats it with something to the effect of, but of course not all this stuff in the Old Testament. But here is the distinction. You can't get away from that. And this is where I feel like Alex is not being consistent. You have seen just as much as I have Alex argue very well for the immorality of the God of the Old Testament, for the issues with that particular deity, Yahweh.
I get sick to death of people hand-waving away this genocide by some vague reference to the fact that Jesus came along to do something which somehow kind of undoes the immorality of it.
You can't say, I want Christianity to be true, or I like Jesus' story and impact so much that I think it's more plausible, without both of those sentiments tracking all the way back to Yahweh. If Christianity is plausible, then so is a God who commands genocide. If Christianity is plausible, so is hell or annihilation. So is original sin. So is submissive hierarchy, divine command theory, salvation being based off belief, which even Alex admits one cannot control. Salvation you cannot control equals a lack of free will, even within the God system, that I know Alex takes issue with. And so I just can't figure out where this disconnect is. And I don't know exactly why I'm talking about it. Maybe it's just to get feedback. Maybe it's because, and I did this February of this year. I went back and looked. February 5th, I sent Alex an email asking him to have a conversation with me about this, to help clear this up for me, why someone who so understands the issues with the religion would say time and time again that he wishes Christianity would be true. And I didn't hear back, and that makes sense to me. I can't keep up with all of my emails, and he is on such another level and stage. The kinds of requests that he is probably answering are obviously the ones with these huge reaches, which I at that time didn't have and still don't have anywhere near what he's been doing. So no problem. But it's not like I'm just trying to attack Alex here. I genuinely respect Alex. I think he's probably the best atheist communicator out there. But again, if we go back to this noticed shift, if I'm being generous, I would say it's under the sake of intellectual humility, or again, perhaps bridge building, trying to be better heard by the religious. But to what end? And what is being sacrificed in the meantime? He's still not a Christian. He makes that abundantly clear.
I'm still not a Christian.
But by saying the things that he has said, it leads all of the apologists to saying things like this.
You know what's forming is Alex O'Connor's going to become Christian. And I really like Alex O'Connor.
He's very charismatic and very sweet guy.
But that to me is a good sign, because the fact that he's very sharp, he's all these great things, but he doesn't have hardcore answers to all of those questions. He's obviously curious. He probably hangs out with more Christians than he hangs out with atheists. The moment that he really starts to keep following that, he's going to become Christian. There's no new atheism. The new atheism is old and it's dead.
That's one of like a billion clips that I could play for you where Alex has this effect. And it's really interesting, and this isn't why I made the video, but many times I get comments that are like, look at you, look how close-minded you are. You should be an atheist like Alex. He's so open and kind. And that's fine. If I'm considered more dogmatic than Alex O'Connor, I really don't care. Because again, we still have no actual proof for the validity of Christianity. And there is no doubt that within the source material, the things I call out are there and are harmful. I'm not going to pussyfoot around it for the sake of attracting more Christian viewers. I would hope that my approach does that because I truly care about truth, which Christians ideally should care about. And my stated goal might be very different than Alex's, which is I want to help people deconstructing. And sometimes they need the firmness of hearing what they have been taught that is so clearly untrue is actually untrue and for these reasons. So Alex's softening, which is maybe the best term I can do, over the last year, or there's probably even been a longer time frame leading up to this. He's calling his maturity as he slams the new atheist movement. And I get the problems with new atheism, but I also don't even understand why we had a new atheism in general. Atheism is atheism. Just because four guys made some promises about what secular society could be, not that we've had the chance to see that come to fruition, doesn't mean that new atheism is stupid or wrong. It's just atheism. It's just people not believing in God, and specifically because of time and circumstance, having the ability to actually speak out about the harm of it without fear of being killed for it. So yeah, has Alex progressed a little bit since he was 17 or 18 and wanted to be a little hitch? Absolutely. But to throw all that out is kind of this silly nonsense as he's progressed to this moral high ground of, well, maybe it's more plausible than I thought and I want it to be true. It just hits me the wrong way. And so again, not sure the point here, but I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. Do you see an issue with this? Do you see this as a good thing that Alex, because of this approach, is able to reach a much wider religious audience and be heard? I think there's positive there. But again, the flip side of this is, I think, a weaker position when you try to separate. This is like Christian Apologetics 101. When you try to separate the interesting story, the somewhat decent morals of Jesus, it's not like there's no problems with Jesus, from the larger claims that would have to be true about Christianity to make it real, and also the baggage of the religion for wanting it to be true. And I hate to say this because I think he's leagues ahead of the average apologist, but it does seem like Alex is mixing things up in a way that we see Christians do very similar. This psychological desire, which he has stated multiple times, I want Christianity to be true, with epistemic plausibility. Christianity seems more plausible than before you had some of the new evidence. What evidence? Because what he points to is the impact of the story. But you can do the same thing for the impact of Muhammad's story for Islam. And when Alex was on with Rainn Wilson, he had no problem saying that he thinks Christianity is more plausible than Islam because Islam does not have as much historical backing. But Alex can't possibly think there's historical backing for the Exodus or even the resurrection. Having these appeals to majority, like how many people believe or how quickly quickly the religion took off, even though we have great explanations with understanding how Rome was using it and things of this nature. It's nothing supernatural. It doesn't all of a sudden make supernatural claims more plausible. Desiring something says nothing about the truth of it. Finding some parts more compelling than before makes the resurrection no more compelling than it was, no more plausible than it was. Emotional desirability and epistemic justification are simply different categories. If we blur them, we risk confusing "I like the story" with "I think the evidence supports the story." This is what Christians do. This is what Alex had previously been fighting through. And again, I just can't understand. So maybe it's me. Help me. And this is what I wanted to speak with Alex about. The appeal to Jesus as a historical individual that lived and had a following with a very large impact is not the same as an appeal to Christianity. The Jesus aesthetic is not the same as the Christian doctrinal package. Liking Jesus doesn't make Yahweh more moral all of a sudden. In fact, again, that's what I mean by the doctrinal package. You then have to also be consistent, if you're talking about you want Christianity to be true, in understanding that the claim is that Jesus is God, that he is Yahweh, that he was there at creation, that it was him giving the condoning to Moses about slavery, that it was him ordering David's wives to be raped as punishment. You don't get to like human Jesus and say, therefore Christianity more plausible and I want it to be true, while rejecting all of that, which he does. Again, it's so interesting to see such a otherwise logical brain making potentially, because again, there's nuance and he tries to give himself some outs here and there, but potentially the very same mistakes as the apologist he so perfectly critiques. Alex keeps saying things along the lines of something must have happened. Yes, something happened that led to the cultural impact of Jesus on multitudes of generations. But that doesn't mean something supernatural happened. And until we have any reason to believe that it does, these kinds of statements seem like pandering to Christians, and I don't get it. And I would hate to believe, and I am not accusing him of this, that it is him grifting in some way or money grabbing. It's because I don't believe that he's doing those things that I can't understand it. But the results are the same. The debate space loves these bridge builders. Christians want to hear that their religion could be true, and that even the most staunch atheist, the most popular atheist, is given it attention, and that even though he can't get himself to believe yet, there's always that ... He wishes he could. He wants to. And I love that part of his argument for his argument about divine hiddenness. That, hey, he's open. But being open, having that intellectual humility is a stance back here. Desiring the truth of it, finding it more plausible the more that you speak about it. Those things need to be backed up more. And him not doing so, but still stating them and knowing the cultural impact that it has on the Christian community, I think is strange to say, again, the very least. So I don't want to beat a dead horse. We can keep this video short. And again, I admire his compassion, his intelligence, his ability to speak on these things in such a graceful way, the moral courage of not having to necessarily choose a side. I don't think that he is betraying atheism, but I simply cannot understand what is happening. Tell me your thoughts. What am I missing? What clips have you seen that I haven't? Does this even matter? Is the impact overall better or worse by someone softening Christianity when they don't believe in it in this way, though they already do know the harm? It just seems like he's not connecting the dots. You tell me. So I'm going to shut up. Thanks for being here. I will hopefully see you Thursday for a new comment deep dive, the new series that we're doing. I don't know if it'll be every Thursday, but hopefully. And if not, I'll definitely see you Sunday. Until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support: my Iconoclast, Ann, Boris, Chris, Grant, GVI, Jimmy, Joe, Kitboga, yep, the Kitboga, Matthew, Perry, and Shawn. My Humanist heroes: Chris, Craig, James, Jarrod, and Kristi. My Atheist advocates: Aquitar, Caleb, Dakota, Dan, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Jeremy, Jugs, Julie, Malcolm, Paul, Sparky, and Thomas, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. Would you consider joining these fine people?